Okay, so I am in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I dropped in today. And fabulous gym. I met Kaleo and had a wonderful training session. So he's going to talk to me a little bit. We're going to learn about your team, your gym, and your journey with Ju Jitsu.
Okay, yeah, for sure. What's up, everybody? Oh, let me just turn this off.
There we go.
By the way, everybody in Jiu Jitsu like this, yeah, this is what we do when we were born in Hawaii. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, this is our, we own this, just so you guys know. I'm just kidding.
There we go.
No. Okay. My name is Kaleo Awai. This is my academy, or one of the two locations that I have. Team Papakolea Jiu Jitsu. Papakolea is actually the neighborhood I grew up in from childhood up until age 24.
Geographically, where's Papakolea?
So Papakolea, if we look at ocean, from the ocean to the mountains, on the Honolulu, in the Honolulu area, it would be up near, or most people would probably able to identify the location as Punch Bowl. So that would be up in the mountains. Yeah, so I'm actually from, and it's a homestead land, Hawaiian homestead. So
kind of more
it's kind of going back
natural.
Well, the no, not necessarily. After certain country came over and kind of took over us as a people, as a state, as Hawaiians, there was an act to give back to Hawaiians, and that's where I guess you could kind of relate that to more like, not necessarily a reservation for a native, but for indigenous people to go back and have their own homes and land, because a lot of land was already taken. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into that because I can definitely, it could definitely like disrupt the jiu-jitsu conversation.
But I can imagine a community like that is going to be very close knit, and the tradition and the culture is very important.
A little bit, and then I again find to say I'll go into at least a lot of the tradition and culture was restricted.
Right.
So even if we, by the actual time that, you know, as far as I can remember, growing up, like our Olelo or Hawaiian language was restricted. You could not we're going to go deep, but I'm going to try to stay away and kind of just dabble in. When the language, our people's language was restricted in the schools and in anywhere, we kind of lost that.
Right.
So even going back into, or having the opportunity to have homes was almost westernized by that time.
Right.
So as far as my generation, we spoke English. We went to Western school systems, so a lot of the culture was actually
Lost.
kind of lost. Yeah. And only in the, I'm not sure how long we can go back, how far we can go back, but we have Hawaiians actually fighting, at least to get the language out there, because a lot of Hawaii, or stories, because we didn't have a written language, was lost, but was always translated or told in storytelling and in song, or oli, we call. So a lot of storytelling. That's how we pass on a lot of our grandparents and their great grandparents. So we call kupuna, told stories about their day. And that's how we would know what our history and what it was like at that time, as opposed to having a written language.
So you had the oral history.
Exactly, to
and
go
the
back.
oral legends.
To go back and kind of have that.
I love that you have that care for that for your culture, and your care to bring it back. But I also love how you've taken Papakolea and that neighborhood, which sounds like was kind of a slap in the face more than any,
so,
you know what I mean? But incorporating it into your gym to make it
so as
positive.
growing up there, I mean, I think it was like, although you put all the culture, same blood or the same nation in the same space, we're humans and people go different ways, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of struggle within, and then the introduction, not even that time, it's before my time of drugs, alcohol. That's how we kind of grew up. Everybody in the family was very generationally passed down in that way. So there's a lot of single parents.
Right.
With single parents, you get raised by your grandparents. With
There's a lot of struggle.
Yeah. So yeah, and
did you feel disconnected?
As far as
Like within the family structure growing up?
no, actually, because we were raised
Communally, kind of, it sounds like.
at home. A lot of us, I mean, even if we didn't, like.
But you're saying grandparents, aunts, uncle, everybody filled in for everybody.
The tribe, like
Yeah.
the tribe, and you learned something from everyone, and you were disciplined differently than discipline is today, right? So everyone disciplined. It's not like you're not my mom, so you can't discipline everybody.
Right.
Everybody had the authority.
The authority and the opportunity.
Exactly. You know what I mean? You got out of hand. You got disciplined. Mom could be at work. Somebody,
whoever saw you.
Whoever was there, you got discipline.
Yeah. And I grew up in the country, in the southeastern United States, and it was the same thing. Like, if someone saw you as a kid, not acting right, they were going to take care of it.
And somebody, would say it nowadays. It's like, you gonna talk to my kids like that? I'm like, well, I don't know, man. I can't. But I don't. Today I don't bother as long as my kids know that. Their actions are going to have either disciplinary action or they're going to be rewards. And there's rarely a reward that will come instantly, and that's just life, right?
Right.
What we do unseen, untold. When you go out there, you polish the diamond. It takes a long time to get there, but when it does, and then you get to see the glimmer and the shine, I think that is what I definitely want to pass.
So, we were talking earlier about how you got into Ju Jitsu, and I mean, the time frame, because I think we're probably in our similar age group. I'm 43. You're probably
50.
50. Yeah. The information coming to the islands regarding Ju Jitsu took longer because you didn't have internet, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have those opportunities for training. So how did you find Ju Jitsu? Because you trained under Hickson Gracie. Helson, sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I trained under Helson Gracie. So, sometime in December of 1994, one of my best friends, I think we can say best friends, and you don't know that's a best friend. You think, how we got friends. I don't have a lot of friends, although, I can call a lot of people some really good friends, but as far as best friends, there's like just kind of two individuals on this planet that I spent from a kid time up to now, and it just takes a phone call. Yeah. But we can call anyone, and some people will jump out of bed and do whatever. Some people are like, hey, can you wait till tomorrow?
Yeah.
But I got a really good a friend that introduced me to Jiu-Jitsu, and the time that he introduced me to Jiu-Jitsu, it wasn't, it was his take. It's like, oh man, these guys, they choke the guy out and they're in this cage, and I'm like, are you sure it's like that? That's not, what is that, back in the day, WWF. And it's like, no man, it's like this little skinny guy, and he's like, fighting anybody. I'm like, I don't know about that, man. Sounds very
unrealistic.
Yeah, unrealistic. And I was like, okay, let's. And then he's like, one of my friends got a video, so I actually watched. So for some of you guys might have had, I recommend if you've never seen it, go out and and there's a lot of editing, but I was introduced to Jiu-Jitsu by a video, like Gracie in Action 2, Gracie in Action 1. And if you take a look at that, it's back in Brazil and America. The Gracie families and they had a Gracie challenge. Yeah. And the challenge was fight anytime, any place, anywhere. And Jorge and Gracie at the time put up $10,000. But this was happening way before Jorge and Helson, Hoyler, Hickson. This was happening when Grandmaster Elio Gracie, who is my great grandmaster, I fall under Elio Gracie, Maeda, Elio Gracie, Helson Gracie, second oldest son of Elio, and then myself. But anyway, I saw this video, and it was like real fighting, man. It's like no gloves and blah blah blah, and this guy's like fighting on the beach, fighting in the streets, fighting in the academy, fighting on concrete floors, fighting in the backyard.
Fearless.
Oh, just crazy. And I'm like, wow, man, this is something. This is quite interesting. And then we watched that video, and I was like, man, we're never gonna get access to that. And that time was VHS, so we didn't have like streaming. This was again '94 in Hawaii. If you had streaming in or some type of internet in the U.S. mainland, we didn't have it here. No. Yeah. So kind of looked deeper into it, and Helson Gracie was teaching at Studio 4 in the University of Hawaii, and after watching the video, I was, because one of the guys that had the video, he was actually taking classes, and he said, "You want to go?" And I was like, kind of like, at the end of the video, disclaimer, be careful for fakes and people saying that they train this jiu-jitsu. This is the family jiu-jitsu, the Gracie jiu-jitsu. And I was like, I don't know, maybe this video, because to me, we're just like far away from everything. And even technology. So I'm like, how is this guy telling me that we're gonna go and see this guy that's on this VHS, and that guy is here in Hawaii? It just didn't.
And then I can legit just walk in and
train. I feel like I can be
right.
trained. Like, this guy's from Brazil, man. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like,
do you know how long it took this video to get here?
Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. And then we went over. We went in, and I see all this merchandise with Gracie Jiu Jitsu, and I look over and I see this kind of familiar figure, because the Gracie family, they have this like jawline that they just kind of like,
it's very recognizable.
You know, I'm like, I'm like, I wonder if that's the guy. And then he introduced himself. Hey, my name is Helson Gracie. Welcome to Jiu Jitsu. And I'm like, oh shit, this is a real deal. And I was like, from that day, I didn't fall in love right away, because I had a chip on my shoulder, and I had still doubts. But there's got probably like 50, 60 guys at the time. Jiu-Jitsu was very new. Some of the guys were starting to train 80 in the later 80s, 87, 88. So I am coming into Jiu-Jitsu about 8-9 years in. Wow. For some of the guys that already knew. So
but that's kind of great, because you have some experienced people. But if you're coming in, like you said, with a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, and that's what happened, exactly what happened. So they're like, oh yeah, we do the warm-ups. And I'm like, okay, not bad. It's okay. I got this. Pretty good shape, 24 years old. And then it was like, okay, you guys, we go over the lesson. And he's like, oh, he mount you. And I was like, what? I can't understand what the hell this guy's talking about, because his accent is so heavy. You're like, you get on your back, he's gonna mount you. All I need you to do is get out. And I was like, I got this. And I was like, bah, bah, bah. It felt like he said it was only a minute, but it felt like forever. Yeah. And I think probably within 15 seconds, I was so gassed, and I was like, what the fuck? How am I gonna get out of here?
I think, like, for anybody that thinks, oh, I could defend myself, I'm fine, like my instincts will kick in. Until you've had another body like hold you down, even doesn't fully know what they're doing.
True.
To try to get out, like even when they've got 40 pounds on you, that can be a real struggle, and you don't understand that until you experience it.
And from that moment, I was like, man, very interesting, because it wasn't like, you go into a striking gym and you got a chip on the shoulder, like you're gonna go and friggin' instructor's going to give him like, light this guy up, It was more like, all you have to do is just get out. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all you have to do. I mean, I'm not going to,
Yeah.
and then after all of that, and I was like, hey, one more time, let's do this again. And even more gassed out. And then he said, oh, imagine he punched your face. And I was like, oh man, I could not imagine this guy was punching my face at the same time. But if you look at the classic Gracie Jiu Jitsu, like back the videos, it was inevitable that you mount, you get hit in the face, and the first thing, you can't block it. So what people do, first thing they do is turn. And you slip in the rear naked choke. And to me, I'm like, that equation for every, and I put it together watching the video, that happened to almost 90% of the fights that I saw on this video. And I was like, this system has to make sense. I just, it was my first class, so I didn't know how it made sense. And then I trained ever since.
So you got hooked by the strategy of it all.
Yeah, more so, not because I could see like there was like the ability to like kick somebody's ass like I was watching. It was the inability not to get out of a space as simple as someone on top of you and not having.
So being 24, healthy, fit, chip on your shoulder, so you think, I've got this. Like I've got the anger,
100%.
I've got the physicality.
Yeah, I got this. 100%.
And then to realize,
yeah.
I don't.
It
How did the strategy though? Because coming in with that mindset and then realizing there's a strategy in a fight. And now 27 later, you own 2 schools, you're training constantly. Obviously, Jiu Jitsu is a huge part of your life. How did the strategy change that mindset over time to be where you are now?
Well, the strategy of Jiu Jitsu and its techniques, or just,
I guess being a practitioner, like all of it.
well, Jiu Jitsu has changed a lot. When I started to train, there's very little footage of tournaments.
Right.
So I didn't like, we had a few local tournaments, but I didn't really, my introduction to Jiu Jitsu was like real fighting, watching guys like handle business. That's basically what I got interested. So I didn't know about like the whole point system or like, the tournament venue. So coming in and then having my instructor and learning about him and his days back when he was fighting. I mean, he's basically the champion of the streets. He didn't like every fight had the same result. He would kick everybody's asses, And I was like, man, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that like want to kick everybody's, but to know that jiu-jitsu. And now today it's very very different. And I don't like to bash on the sport and or like which is better, because that's a big talk today about sport jiu-jitsu versus self-defense. But with my instructor, the system, we have to know. We are as black belts. We have to know our self-defense, his curriculum, and we teach the curriculum of the Helsing Gracie system of self-defense. Everything else we do, we can introduce a lot of sport jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's a fun part. If we did like self-defense every day, I wouldn't say it would get boring. But a lot of guys get hurt more than they would do in sport jiu-jitsu, because with self-defense jiu-jitsu, it takes a toll on the body.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think the difference is with like I can drill. There's a lot of physical, like doing our best to replicate an attack, to replicate
an actual fight,
an actual system or scenario that you might be put in, and not try to not water it down to a point where I play a sport jiu-jitsu, I never get hit in my face. I never get I'll take a strike. Yeah. So.
Well, I loved just today what we learned, breaking grips and that progression, so that there's options there, and creating the space to escape from a self-defense perspective.
Yeah.
And keeping that in mind, from a competition perspective, you're not looking to break and run.
Yeah.
You're looking, how do I really get in there?
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to teach both.
I think so too. and I believe if it takes a personality that enters the mats to see what they want, from their jiu-jitsu experience. Now, because sport jiu-jitsu is so popular, I definitely know me and my associates who have other schools. Let me just give a shout out. So we got Team Papakolea Jiu-Jitsu. We have Team HK, Tatanaka, Mike Chris Onzuka, O2 Martial Arts Academy out in Aiea. We got HNL Jiu-Jitsu out in Hawaii Kai. We have pretty much a system that we are asked to do as an association, and that we perpetuate self-defense. So it might be really different coming in from a sport aspect, and I will teach a self-defense aspect at a higher belt. Will not know. I never saw a technique before, and I'm not surprised, But I'm not here to bash. Jiu-Jitsu has changed, but we want to do the same thing. Kind of with our Hawaiian culture is to perpetuate and continue to pass what it was passed down to us in its purest form possible. So my instructor, Helson Gracie, we still test for black belts. We still have a system that we have to pass. He'll sit there. He'll go into the room with a partner, another black belt. He'll sit in the room like this here. Okay, go. And you run through. He'll call out these certain scenarios, and you have to perform them 100%, or you fail.
Wow.
So to get your degree on your black belt, and all my degrees, I'm a 4th degree black belt under Helson Gracie. Got my black belt in 2011. I started training jiu-jitsu in 1994. So as of today, what does that make? Almost, well, for the black belt, almost 12 years.
Wow.
Right? So July would be 12 years.
And that's starting as a 24-year-old healthy, fit, active. Aggression on point.
100%. Yeah, so coming in now, so if you want to look the strategy and the approach, like for me, I want to not necessarily combine the two, but if we train and you don't get to the higher belts or rank up, that I've done enough to perpetuate that self-defense, because not everybody's going to be a competitor. Not everybody's going to go through the entire system.
But I think that as a black belt with so much skill, and as a coach and an owner of schools, ultimately keeping that focus of whatever the personal goal of the student is.
100%.
My job is to do everything I can to prepare them if someone ever comes after them with bad intentions.
At the end of the day.
I love that mentality, because who cares how many trophies they bring back to the school? And if you notice,
like in my school, we have a bunch of belts and trophies. I always keep that in the back of the room.
Yeah.
I keep that in the back of the room to let my students know that, that's not the main focus, And if we do, we got a whole bunch here, and some of the guys took theirs home, but it's fun. Competition is fun, and competition keeps learning us on the mats. Like even as a black belt of yesteryear,
kind of motivates.
The evolution of jiu-jitsu. Like a lot of my students that are younger, because they have access to streaming and video footage and this and that. I do too, but they
find stuff. Yeah, they do.
Come in and they show some stuff, and I'm like, okay, let me go and work with that. But I still continue to let them know that at the end of the day, if you cannot defend yourself in a situation that might call for you to get your jiu-jitsu and prepare yourself and react accordingly, so you're safe. Not necessarily, and I'm saying that we're gonna beat the guy up or even have that opportunity. Right. It's to be in a safe place or until you can escape. Yeah. And just for you guys out there, over time, I've heard a lot of my students be in situations and come and thank me for jiu-jitsu. And just like, thanks for the jiu-jitsu. And, you know, I do, again, I teach both, but at the same time, it's to the mentality to understand what jiu-jitsu am I pulling out today. Here I come to the academy, this is the jiu-jitsu I'm going to use. You know, my coach is making sure that we have scenarios that we can understand. Like, there's so many facets that can happen outside the academy. We're safe, everybody's friendly, we got the mats. But once we go, like for me, I always tell my students, I want to share jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu that when I walk out of this door, anything can happen.
Yeah.
As soon as I close the door behind me,
you're so prepared.
You know, I go to my car, you know, get into my car, you know, like, are you guys not necessarily prepared, but who out there in the audience, are you guys going to your cars or taking a look around the parking lot, all right, and get into the car, look into the cars next to you when you get into, especially women. Do you lock your doors and then check your phone? Or are we hardwired now to check your phone first and maybe have that one leg out the door and be like on your phone? To be aware of.
Would you say that jiu-jitsu has increased situational awareness for you?
100%.
I mean, I feel that it has.
100%.
And I was raised by military veterans, both of my parents. And so situational awareness was huge just in my childhood. But I feel that my training has enabled me to kind of differentiate, because I'll meet
That's
people,
what you need to do.
People who have great situational awareness, but that means that they're jumping at every shadow.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy either.
Absolutely, and that's what I say to my students too. I'm like, I talk about situational awareness, but I'm not like, you guys can't be like jumping at everything, you know?
Yeah.
Because now everybody's like, what the hell is wrong with that person?
Yeah.
You know? So it's just being aware, taking a glance, and knowing that, you know, you did scan the terrain. You know, scan the terrain and make sure that.
I think I've learned to read energies better.
Oh, 100%.
Like the way that
you know,
people are
jiu-jitsu,
approaching.
I think, like, as far as jiu-jitsu and the self-defense jiu-jitsu brings this into play hugely, is understanding the vibrations, right? And you know, my oldest daughter is 13, and you know, we live in a building, so we have to be. She's like, "Oh, Dad, what if I'm in the elevator?" And you know, I don't know if your jiu-jitsu is teaching you guys close quarter combat. But
especially for her to recognize in the
years
elevator, I might not be able to run away.
Right, exactly. You know?
It's just not an option
So
for
is the
maybe
jiu-jitsu,
30
right?
seconds.
Right.
And a lot can happen in 30 seconds. You and I both, just like you said, when you first started, all you have to do is get up.
Yeah, all you have to do, right?
It's only been a minute.
Kelsey gave me a minute, and I thought it was like forever, and it was probably only 10 seconds that I could ever, like, even as much energy as it went from full tank to zero.
Do you know what, though, I would say is thank God for that minute, because look
100%.
where it's brought you. So, everybody out there, if you are living in Hawaii, visiting Hawaii, if you're in Honolulu, come check them out. This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Hope to see you guys. Aloha.